It's the day after a Gilded Age episode, so you know what that means. The new trailer for the Gilded Age episode 6 has been released, and I'm going to be breaking it down. With episode 5 concluding with Ada getting married to Reverend Forte and it seeming like the Russells had the upper hand in all of their endeavours, I think this is going to be the episode where the storm finally hits them. So with that, let's jump into the trailer, break it down, and I'll also give my theories and predictions on what I think's going to happen next. So let's get into it. Here is the Gilded Age Season 2 Episode 6 Trailer Explained. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. So the trailer opened up with a shot of Agnes's house accompanied by the first line of dialogue that was spoken by Bannister. He uttered the line, "It's the afternoon post," to which Agnes looked up, rolled her eyes and let out a sigh. Marion asked Agnes who it was from, to which she then responded with, "It's from your Aunt Ada," no doubt bleeding on about her untold happiness. If only it were untold. This was intercut with a shot of Ada and Reverend Forte dancing around what looked like a living room. Seeing as though it's just been their wedding, one would imagine that they're on some kind of honeymoon. I did actually wonder if honeymoons were around in the 1800s, and they were, so that could well be the case for Ada and the Reverend. So if that's what's in store for Ada in this next episode, personally, I don't think we'll get a lot of time with her. I think it might just be a small feature like we had with Peggy down in the south a couple of episodes back. With Agnes saying, "If only it were untold," it shows that Ada has obviously been writing to Agnes a lot during her time away about how happy she is. And even though Agnes was accepting of Ada's wedding at the end of the last episode, I imagine the jealousy that's present within her is something that's still burning up inside of her. She's not only lost her sister, but she's watching her view life in a new way whilst also being blindsided by love, the complete opposite to how Agnes lives her life. Following this clip, we got a scene that I think is going to combine the story of Bertha Russell's war with the Academy and her war with Mrs. Winterton together. Mr. Gilbert announced that he felt more confident than ever that the new Metropolitan Opera would be a great success. This conversation was happening as he was sitting alongside Mrs. Winterton, and they were both sat opposite Bertha Russell. Mrs. Winterton followed Mr. Gilbert's line and said, "And now it will be, thanks to us." I think this is most likely going to be tied back to what was mentioned a couple of episodes back, when Mr. Gilbert informed Bertha that the pot of money that was needed to continue with the development had run dry. We saw that George reinvested some money into it, but maybe he had to pull out, or they encountered some more financial issues. So this could mean that Mr. and Mrs. Winterton could be looking to invest some money into it, which will help with the smooth running of the opening. This is Bertha's worst nightmare, as it would mean that she would own something that Mrs. Winterton does too. Somebody who used to be her lady's maid. And if the information were to ever get out, it could ruin the reputation that Bertha has established, and also the reputation of the Met. So this is most likely Mrs. Winterton's way of keeping her friends close, but her enemies even closer. The next scene that we had in the trailer was of Oscar voicing over dialogue where he said, "Things are going well." Or is it a risk to say that? In the context of the trailer, it was intercut with a lot of different clips from different sections, but I think this conversation is most likely taken from his walk in the garden with Miss Beaton, as we're going to be watching the progression of their relationship together. As shortly afterwards, Miss Beaton responded with, "You're not afraid of taking a risk, are you?" To which Oscar responded with, "Certainly not." So I think we'll see their relationship moving in the right direction, as Miss Beaton looks to continue to grow feelings for him. In terms of the other clips that it was intertwined with, we saw that there was a scene of Agnes looking over at Marion and smiling, who was standing alongside Cousin Dashiell and Francis. It seems like Agnes would be pleased if Marion were to get married to Cousin Dashiell, and I also think that he and Francis would like that too, but I don't know if that's what Marion actually wants. Marion seems to have quite a strong connection with Larry Russell, and we saw a brief glimpse of it in the previous episode. Aunt Ada said to Marion that you know when you've met the right person and you want to marry them, and Marion basically responded by saying that she hopes that she gets that feeling when she knows too. So as much as Francis and Dashiell want her to be part of their family, I think we're going to see Marion declining a proposal from him in the near future. There was also a scene of Oscar in the room where he placed his investment in the previous episode. However, this time round, he was ripping up his check. I think this could mean that Oscar has realized that this person was scamming Miss Beaton, and ultimately him too, which it did kind of feel like was happening due to the secretive nature of it all. So with that, Oscar could be ripping up his check that he wrote out for the investment. So I imagine that would also make him inform Miss Beaton, which might put him in her good books even more. The next scene that we had was with Peggy's story that's been developing, and it looks as though she's made it back to the city and out of Tuskegee without being harmed, as she was having a conversation with her mother. Plus, Mr. Fortune was also standing in his office looking unharmed too. Dorothy was informing Peggy that the education board was trying to shut down the schools for black people, to which Peggy responded with, "They have to be stopped." I don't know whether this is in the South or in the city. If it is in the South, then we may see them head down to Tuskegee again, but I don't think that will be the case. It's too risky for them. I think it's going to be in the North, so maybe Peggy and Mr. Fortune will adopt some of what Mr. Washington was doing down South and apply it to their lives. The final part of the trailer was focused on the section that I'm looking forward to seeing the most of, and a part of the episode that I think could end up having devastating consequences for the Russells and their reputation. We saw that the strike that was organised by George's workers and the union was taking place, and it looked like they were out in full force. There was a line of dialogue which was being spoken, which was, "They'll be ready with their patrols and their guns." This is most likely being spoken by a worker as he's rallying up the men for protest. With chants such as "Workmen Unite," it shows that they don't want violence, they just want 8 hours of labour, 8 hours of recreation, and 8 hours of rest, something which they're protesting for. The final line that was spoken in the trailer was by George Russell, and he said, "I hope it doesn't come to violence, but we're prepared if it does." So I feel violence is definitely going to happen, and we're going to see what was most likely going to be a peaceful protest turn into a bloody one. In episode 3, the union members said that they needed to be prepared to die for what they were fighting for. So if that's the mentality that they've got, then who's to say what could happen? In terms of other storylines that we could see getting developed, I feel we're going to be seeing more of Larry Russell and Miss Blaine. He's deeply infatuated with her, and I don't feel like his mother trying to come between them is going to stop them, even if he is more suited to Marion. I also think we'll see more of Mr. Watson being conflicted over what it is that he's going to be doing with regards to leaving the city and taking up Mr. McNeil's offer of having a stable life on the West Coast. He does care for his daughter deeply, and the fact that he wants to hear it from her is something which shows that he doesn't want to back down, so I imagine we'll see him come to his decision too. There are many things that look set to happen in the next episode, and as it all builds towards the season finale, I can't wait to see how it's going to unfold. So, there you have it, The Gilded Age Season 2 Episode 6, Trailer Explained. If you want to see more videos on The Gilded Age, then click on the card in the top corner, or alternatively, you can find more on the channel. And finally, if you'd like to see what I rate the latest movies that don't quite make the cut to getting a dedicated video, then head over to my Letterboxd profile. It's where I rate the latest releases in real time. What do you think will happen next? Leave a comment down below, and don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.